Thousands of retirees spend their life savings chasing the dream of owning a trawler. They picture peaceful sunsets, endless freedom, and a stress-free retirement on the water. But within the first year, many discover a side of trawler ownership nobody warned them about. And surprisingly, it usually has nothing to do with the boat itself. But here's what most retirees discover somewhere around month 4 or 5. The dream collides with reality. And that's where the regret begins. Today we're going to look at the biggest reasons retirees often regret buying a trawler during that first year, and more importantly, how you can see these things coming before they catch you off guard. Let's start with the one nobody wants to think about. Maintenance never stops. Picture a retired engineer named Frank. 35 years in a factory fixing machines, so he figured a boat would be easy for a man with his hands. 6 months into ownership, Frank told a friend something that stuck. The boat doesn't take days off. A house. When something breaks, you fix it eventually. A boat sits in the water every single hour of every single day, and the water never stops trying to take something from you. Bilge pumps fail quietly, usually at the worst moment. Batteries die without warning, often during a cold snap when you need them most. Corrosion creeps into places you can't see until it's already a problem. Engines that ran perfectly all season suddenly develop a strange noise 3 days before a planned trip. Maintenance on a trawler isn't occasional, it's constant. A low hum running underneath every day of ownership, whether you notice it or not. Most retirees underestimate this badly. They picture maybe a weekend here and there. The reality is closer to several hours a week, every week, for as long as they own the boat. And for someone who imagined retirement as the end of obligation, that disappointment can be sharp. If this is already making you rethink a few assumptions, good. That's exactly the point. Hit the like button, subscribe to Boat Hunter, and turn on notifications. We post a new video every single day, and the next several minutes are going to save some of you a very expensive mistake. But surprisingly, maintenance isn't what causes most owners to question their decision. What comes next catches far more people off guard. Because the biggest surprise isn't mechanical, it's financial. The costs nobody talks about. Here's where the dream usually takes its first real hit. A retired couple, we'll call them Bill and Carol, did their homework before buying. Researched the purchase price extensively, compared models, got a survey, they felt prepared. What they didn't fully account for was everything that comes after the purchase price. Dockage fees that run by the foot every month, regardless of whether the boat moves an inch. Insurance premiums that reflect the real risk of owning something this expensive and this exposed to weather. Fuel costs that punish anyone who didn't budget generously. Bottom cleaning on a schedule, whether you feel like paying for it or not. Generator repairs that arrive without an appointment. Haul-outs every year or two costing thousands before any actual repair work even begins. Bill and Carol budgeted what they thought was a generous cushion. By month 8, that cushion was gone, and they were dipping into money set aside for something else entirely. This is the part of trawler ownership that never makes it into the glossy brochures or the dreamy YouTube videos. The actual, ongoing cost of keeping a boat capable of doing what you bought it to do. And here's the cruelest twist. Many retirees who felt that financial pressure made a decision that on paper seemed perfectly reasonable. They started using the boat less, but that quiet decision ends up causing a whole different kind of damage. They use the boat less than expected. This one surprises almost everyone who hasn't lived through it. Most people picture themselves living aboard full-time, or at minimum, out on the water every weekend, chasing sunsets and exploring new harbors. That's the entire fantasy that justified the purchase in the first place. The reality, for a surprising number of owners, looks completely different. The boat sits at the dock far more than anyone anticipated. Partly it's the financial pressure we just talked about. Every trip costs money, so trips start feeling like decisions rather than spontaneous joys. Partly it's the maintenance burden. After spending Saturday morning fighting a stubborn bilge pump, the appeal of taking the boat out that same afternoon evaporates pretty quickly. And partly it's something more subtle. The boat becomes a project to manage rather than an escape to enjoy. A retired schoolteacher named Margaret described it perfectly. She used to drive past the marina on her way to the grocery store and feel a little guilty every time, like she was looking at an expensive piece of exercise equipment gathering dust in the corner of a garage. Except this one cost considerably more than a treadmill and demanded considerably more attention even while sitting still. The boat that was supposed to set them free instead became one more thing demanding their time and their guilt. And if the boat itself wasn't delivering the freedom they imagined, the place where it actually sat turned out to be its own kind of disappointment. Marinas aren't always paradise. The mental image is almost universal. Quiet docks, gentle water, maybe a heron standing in the shallows at dawn. The actual experience can be something else entirely. Marinas have rules, sometimes extensive ones, covering everything from pet policies to quiet hours to what you're allowed to store on your own deck. The popular ones are crowded, boats packed in close enough that privacy becomes a question rather than an assumption. Noise travels easily across water, which means someone else's generator, someone else's late-night gathering, someone else's barking dog becomes part of your evening whether you invited it or not. Waiting lists for the good marinas, the desirable ones, with real amenities, can stretch for years. Many new owners end up settling for whatever slip is actually available, rather than the postcard location they originally pictured. And there's the worry that never fully goes away once you understand it. Storm season. Watching the forecast with genuine anxiety, wondering if your lines are tight enough, if your fenders are positioned right, if the boat next to you did the same. A retired couple from Ohio admitted they spent more nights lying awake worrying about weather in their first year than in the previous decade combined. Not because anything terrible actually happened, just because the possibility was always there, humming in the background. But weather worry is nothing compared to the moment a new owner realizes just how much they don't actually know yet. Learning curve shock. Here's something almost nobody talks about honestly before buying a trawler. The learning curve is steeper than most first-time buyers expect, and steep in ways that aren't always obvious from the outside. Navigation requires real study, not just intuition. Docking a boat this size, particularly in wind or current, takes practice that can be genuinely humbling, sometimes in front of fellow boaters watching from nearby decks. Reading weather accurately takes time, and, often, a few uncomfortable lessons learned the hard way. Electrical systems on a boat are nothing like the electrical systems in a house, and the assumption that "I'm pretty handy" translates into "I understand marine electrical systems" is one of the most common and costly miscalculations new owners make. Anchoring properly in a way that actually holds overnight through a shift in wind or tide takes real repetition to develop confidence in. A retired airline pilot, someone who spent his career operating complex machinery at the highest level of professional competence, admitted his first attempt at docking in a crosswind left him more rattled than turbulence ever had in 30 years of flying. Flying had procedures. The boat had only instinct. And his instinct, in those early months, simply wasn't there yet. This catches people off guard, because retirement is supposed to be the reward at the end of a long career of competence. Suddenly finding yourself a beginner again, at an age when most people expect to be the expert in the room, can feel surprisingly destabilizing. If you're finding this video useful, take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to Boat Hunter, and turn on notifications so you catch tomorrow's video too. We post every single day, and we still haven't gotten to some of the biggest surprises on this list. But the learning curve doesn't compare to what happens when an entire life has to fit into a space that suddenly feels much smaller than it did on paper. Downsizing is harder than expected. The math seems simple on paper: smaller living space, fewer possessions, a simpler life. The emotional reality of actually doing it is considerably more complicated. Storage on a trawler, even a generously sized one, is nothing like storage in a house. Closets that once held decades of clothing now hold a careful, curated selection. The garage full of tools, the attic full of memories, the spare bedroom full of furniture from a previous chapter of life. All of it has to go somewhere, and somewhere usually means gone entirely. A retired couple from Michigan described downsizing as grief disguised as a garage sale. They weren't just getting rid of things. They were getting rid of the version of themselves that owned those things, the parents who needed a house full of toys for visiting grandchildren, the homeowners who needed a workshop and a closet full of seasonal decorations. Living space aboard, even on a comfortable 40-foot trawler, can feel cramped in ways that surprise people who assumed the square footage math meant they'd be fine. There's a difference between calculating square footage on paper and actually living, day after day, in a space where every item needs a designated place, where clutter becomes a genuine problem rather than a minor annoyance. This adjustment takes time. For some, it never fully resolves, and that unresolved tension becomes one more quiet source of regret. And once the boxes are gone and the new routine settles in, a different kind of absence starts creeping in. One that's much harder to pack away. Loneliness? Nobody pictures this one when dreaming about retirement on the water. Friends and family, the people who formed the backbone of a previous life, aren't always nearby anymore. Maybe the marina is 3 states from the grandkids. Maybe the new community of fellow boaters takes longer to build than expected, especially for couples who aren't naturally extroverted or who chose a quieter marina specifically to avoid crowds. Many retirees, without quite realizing it was happening, had built an entire social structure around routine. The same coffee shop, the same neighbors, the same weekly card game or church group. Moving onto a boat doesn't just relocate a person physically. It can quietly dismantle years of social infrastructure that took decades to build. A retired widow named Dorothy spoke about this more openly than most. The silence aboard, the same silence she once dreamed about during 30 noisy years raising a household, eventually started to feel less like peace and more like isolation. She missed her sister's Sunday phone calls, happening in person instead. She missed a predictable rhythm she hadn't fully appreciated until it was gone. This isn't true for everyone. Plenty of retirees build wonderful new communities on the docks, sometimes closer than the neighborhoods they left behind. But for those who don't, loneliness can be one of the most unexpected and painful surprises of the entire experience. And even for those who do find community, there's one force none of them can fully escape. Weather controls your life. Everyone knows boats are affected by weather, but the actual day-to-day reality of letting weather dictate your schedule is something most new owners only understand after living through an entire year of it. Storms reshape weeks of planning in a matter of hours. Extreme heat makes simply being aboard, without air conditioning running constantly, genuinely uncomfortable for extended stretches. Humidity creeps into fabric, electronics, the air itself, in ways a land-based home doesn't experience to the same degree. Cold weather can mean winterizing systems, worrying about freezing pipes, and sometimes abandoning the boat entirely for months. Wind alone can cancel a trip, delay a return, or turn routine docking into a stressful event. A retired couple cruising the Gulf Coast described an entire summer where their plans existed purely as suggestions, constantly rewritten by whatever the sky decided to do that week. It took real psychological adjustment to stop fighting that reality and accept that the weather, not their calendar, was actually in charge. For people who spent careers controlling schedules and meeting deadlines, surrendering that control to something this unpredictable can be one of the more humbling adjustments of trawler ownership. But weather only tests the individual. What we're about to talk about tests something far more personal: the relationship sitting right next to them at the helm. Relationship stress. This requires some care because it's easy to oversimplify something genuinely complicated. Many couples enter trawler ownership assuming they share the same vision: sunsets, adventure, a simpler life together after decades of careers and competing obligations. Often, that vision really is shared, at least at the level of the dream itself. The friction shows up in the details. One partner might thrive on the mechanical challenge, finding real satisfaction in solving problems. The other might find the same challenges exhausting and anxiety-inducing rather than rewarding. One might want to travel constantly, chasing new harbors. The other might want to settle into one marina and build a routine, a community, a sense of home. A retired couple, married over 30 years, described reaching a point in their first year where they realized, almost to their own surprise, that they had never actually discussed what retirement on the water was supposed to look like day to day. They'd discussed the dream in broad strokes for years. They'd never discussed the logistics. This isn't a story about boats breaking up marriages. Most couples work through these differences, sometimes by adjusting expectations, sometimes by changing how they use the boat, sometimes simply by having the honest conversation they should have had before the purchase, rather than 4 months into it. But the stress is real, and it surprises people precisely because they assumed the hard part of retirement was behind them. The hard part, it turns out, sometimes just changes shape. But after speaking with countless owners over the years, one uncomfortable pattern keeps showing up. Because maintenance wasn't really the problem. The weather wasn't the problem. Even loneliness wasn't the problem. In many cases, the regret started the day they bought the boat, and that's where the final mistake comes in. They bought the wrong boat. Here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath almost every story in this video. A significant number of regretful first-year owners didn't necessarily make a mistake by buying a trawler. They made a mistake by buying the wrong trawler for the wrong lifestyle, often after a buying process that moved far too quickly. Some bought too much boat, drawn in by impressive specifications and beautiful staterooms, without honestly assessing whether they had the experience or the budget to maintain something that size. Some bought too little boat, underestimating how much space two people actually need to coexist peacefully over months and years. Some bought based purely on appearance, falling for a boat that looked stunning at the dock, without considering whether its layout, systems, or mechanical history actually suited the kind of cruising they planned to do. And once that happens, every other problem gets magnified. Maintenance feels worse. Expenses feel heavier. Weather feels unbearable. Arguments happen more often. The boat sits at the dock longer, and eventually, some owners begin wondering whether the dream itself was a mistake, when in reality, it wasn't the dream that failed. It was simply the wrong boat. A retired contractor named Pete admitted he bought his boat after a single afternoon of looking, swept up by the moment, the salesman's confidence, and his own excitement after decades of waiting for this chapter of his life. He skipped a thorough survey. He didn't talk to other owners of the same model. He didn't honestly assess whether the boat matched his actual plans versus his imagined ones. 18 months later, he sold that boat at a loss and bought a completely different one, researched far more carefully the second time around. He told a friend that the second boat felt like the one he should have bought from the very beginning, if only he'd taken the time to understand what he needed before falling in love with what merely looked appealing. This single mistake, more than any other, tends to set the entire tone for that crucial first year. Buy the right boat for your actual life, and many of these other challenges become manageable inconveniences rather than sources of genuine regret. Buy the wrong one, and even minor problems start to feel like confirmation that the whole dream was a mistake. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. Trawlers don't ruin retirement. Unrealistic expectations do, because the dream isn't dead. Far from it. The thousands of retirees are living that dream right now. But the people who enjoy it the most aren't the luckiest. They're simply the ones who knew what nobody warned the others about. And if today's video saves even one retiree from making a six-figure mistake, then it was worth making. I'm Boat Hunter, helping everyday Americans make smarter decisions before they buy their dream boat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.